Things are getting tougher when you can't get the top off the bottom of the barrel. Wide open, roar my future now. It's looking fucking new. All I know is that I don't know. All I know is that I don't know nothing. All I know is that I don't know. All I know is that I don't know. Gentlemen, what is up? Welcome to the Lone Element Podcast. I have with me today Mr. Brian Cook and Clark. I'm sorry, I didn't get your last name, Clark. What was your last name?
Kernut. Mark Kernut.
Clark Kernut. And both of these fine gentlemen are with BC Precision Ballistics. So I will give you guys the floor, and I would love to hear about basically the genesis of the company and how you guys got started and how you guys went down the development path with this bullet. So I'll give you the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Kind of the genesis was when Winchester came out with the 350 Legend round. It was, specifically designed to run an AR-15 for the states that, couldn't use a bottleneck cartridge. And when I got to looking at that cartridge, I realized it held a whole lot more powder than your 5.56 or 2.23 round. It's actually a larger case, being, the rim being slightly rebated. So it caught my attention, and I started playing with numbers to see what bullets, if we necked it down, how much of the case would be left, which bullets it could take, neck to ogive, all the numbers you have to run on a case. And it really captured me. I said, yeah, this case holds significantly more powder, even neck down to 6mm than anything, in existence. It filled a niche, basically. It was a blank cartridge. It filled a niche. I mean, everybody's tried it with a 6.8, the Grendel, everybody that's tried it has had to go to a larger bolt face and structurally weaken the bolt face to adapt a different cartridge into an M16 or M4A1 platform. And they've achieved the performance in one form or another, but they've substantially weakened the gun. It came with baggage and problems. So we looked at taking this case and maintaining the TSO or type service order of the bolt carrier group and the original weapon, not modifying it in any way, and achieving, ballistically superior performance. And that was the beginning. And, it was a long, arduous road. It's been 4 years. And through that, we developed this through COVID, which should have taken weeks or months to get things done, took years. Because
COVID did a great job of like really kicking everybody's ass on the supply chain and just
it shut everything down. So I just dug both heels in and said I'm not going to quit, and kept going. And when things happen, they happen, because I said, well, we're all in this together. If I'm not going forward, nobody else is going forward either. So the one who persists is going to win in this.
Yeah, and endurance is going to be the winner for sure.
Exactly.
So like backing up real quick, just I'd love to hear a quick background on both of you guys in terms of like just a quick brushstroke of where'd you grow up?
I grew up predominantly in Florida till I guess 1988. I moved to Texas, but I grew up hunting since I was 5 years old, with my great grandfather's, model 94 or 1894, saddle ring carbine. At 5 years old, I was whacking deer with it in Georgia and Florida. So that's kind of my background as a hunter and an outdoorsman, and as a kid that grew up, in what, I don't know, old America. I don't know if that's the America we're living in now, but when we grew up as kids, we grew up shooting and hunting and fishing. And, I was shooting and skinning animals at 6 and 7 years old and eating them. So,
yeah, that's pretty much how I grew up, the same way too, up here in Wyoming. Same thing. Like I think I shot my first gun at 4 years old, and then got my first gun given to me by my dad. It was a little lever action, breech loaded single shot 22. Grew up with a Daisy Red Ryder. When I didn't have my 22, I had my Daisy Red Ryder, and I was out doing the same thing, plinking soda cans and plinking little critters that were running around. So yeah, I pretty much grew up the exact same way.
And then I met a fellow aviator who's old German guy, pretty amazing guy, Joe Schlein. He's passed on now, but he was my gunsmith, and we started building guns. And then I dove off into competition shooting, and that was the beginning or the genesis for me of understanding, the numbers in a gun. What makes precision, what makes velocity, went down that slippery slope. I had, my dad's infield 30-06, and it would group about 12 rounds, and then it would start grouping like a clock. And I took it to Joe and I said, "What the heck's going on here?" He said, "Keep a notebook." And every inch I'd clean the bore and it'd shoot 12 rounds under an inch. And round 13, it'd start, about 12 MOA drawing a clock. And basically what it was is the end of the bore was 100 years old, and the end of the bore was completely pitted and corroded, and it would copper foul out in 12 rounds. And it started, I shot a deer, mule deer, and, went to, missed. And I said, there's no way I could have missed that deer. It's just not possible, and that started the slippery slope of learning precision and how a gun fouls out and accuracy and all those things. And then, I just went down the slope, never turned back. I just wanted to learn everything there was about a gun. And then through a mutual friend of me and Clark's, Speedy Gonzalez, which is a gunsmith and a Hall of Famer for accuracy shooting, I went to him to have some parts made as part of this 6mm max program. And I asked him, I said, "Can you help me?" And he says, "No, I can't help you because I'm busy." But he says, "I know a guy that can help you, and he does things exactly the way I do." And he introduced me to Clark, and that's, I guess, going on about 2 years ago now. And that's how me and Clark got to know each other. And then through this process, I said, "Hey, you need to come on board and be a partner." So Clark became our third partner, and it's basically the three of us. And he basically completed the knowledge package. I had knowledge in the powders and in the lab from what I learned, and Clark's gunsmithing ability. He educated me. He took me over the threshold of what I thought I knew. I didn't know anything.
Yeah, amazing how that works. It's one of the reasons that I love podcasting so much, is that I get to have really amazing conversations and get educated on the things that I have no clue about. And great at I would say my knowledge base, great at putting the bullets in the gun and shooting the gun accurately. But anything outside of that, I would not say I'm a subject matter expert in the science of all the gunsmithing and ballistic stuff. So have a very rudimentary level of knowledge, but I really enjoy the facet of being able to sit down and have great conversations and get educated. So Clark, what's your background, and how did you bring me up to speed on where you grew up and how you got involved with firearms and what you've been doing?
All right. So born and raised in Texas, born in Dallas, lived in San Antonio pretty much my entire life. Was fortunate growing up. My family had a ranch out in the hill country of Texas. So I got, hunted my whole life, avid outdoorsman. And I've just always been fascinated by firearms. But more importantly, how do they work? And how can we continually improve them? How can we continue to stretch the limits? How can we, continue to refine them to, I call it the relentless pursuit of precision. How can we make it more precise? I got into competitive shooting around 2000, started off with Sporting Clays 5-stand primarily, and, shot competitively since then. Got out of the shotgun around 2006 or so, migrated into rifle, carbine, and just everything. I mean, I'm absolute, if it goes bang, I'm into it. So, shooting 3-gun, 2-gun, tac carbine, not competing in IDPA or USPSA, but shooting those matches just to keep the pistol skills on par. My primary discipline is PRS, or positional rifle long range shooting. I probably shoot, much to my family's dismay, probably 3 matches a month, as far as club matches. And then also for several years, I put on matches. I put on 3-gun, I put on 2-gun, I put on tac fit, I put on PRS. And then, and a partner of mine, Travis Wall, and I, used to put on a match back in 2017, 18, 19 called World's Longest Shot Challenge. So it was an ELR competition, where the target started at a mile and we had steel all the way out to 4,900 yards. And we were really the first true ELR, that went past 2 miles, or went even hit 2 miles for that matter, and with targets out. And so that getting into the ELR side of things, I've always kind of held the position that you need to be everything a bench press shooter is, but then you need to learn how to read the conditions for thousands of yards,
right,
as opposed to a few hundred. And so I love the science side of it. I'm the guy that's willing to go down the rabbit hole and do the extensive studies and research projects to determine, does this make a difference? Does it not make a difference? Is this actually beneficial or is it detrimental? And all those things, studying and learning all about, optics and so what got me into the gunsmithing side of it is being an avid PRS shooter. At the time I was probably going through 4 or more barrels a year, and I got tired of waiting on the gunsmith. Spin of a barrel, and so I'm like, well, I had a little bit of a machining background years ago, so I was fortunate to be mentored by and continue to have as a mentor to this day, Speedy Gonzalez, who's a world class, Hall of Fame bench rest shooter, 14-time world bench rest champion, and just, if not the top, one of the top precision rifle builders alive today. And so, that's been hugely beneficial, and so that's kind of what got us up to this point. And I avidly compete every chance I get still.
Fantastic.
So when I was referred to Brian from Speedy, it first kind of started off with just, modifying a couple of chambers or spinning up a couple barrels, and it's just kind of blossomed from there to being heavily involved in the testing, pressure testing, load development, just pretty much every aspect of it, and continuing to explore everything this cartridge can do.
Awesome. Yeah. Necessity, the mother of innovation. So, well, that's a great background. I love that you are still out there, that you're actively shooting, stuff like that. Like, to me, with as long as I've been doing this, is what I've noticed is that the people that are actually out there doing it are the ones that are going to put forth a really good quality product. It's the companies that I see that, that are doing the Me Too stuff, that are like, they see something that they like, that the industry or the end user, the customer, the consumers like, and then we'll do a Me Too, what I call a Me Too version of that. And it's always kind of half baked, in my opinion. And it's always the guys that are just like living it, in it, they breathe it, they're in it every single day, are the guys that are putting out the really, really amazing quality, whatever it may be, fill in the blank. For this guy, for this particular situation, you guys are putting out a cartridge that I'm really excited about. So, and I think I learned my lesson early on with the whole 300 blackout thing. Like the 300 blackout, when it first came out, like, over a decade ago, a lot of people didn't know what it was, didn't know what it was for, didn't know the capabilities of it. Hell, I don't think the people that developed it really knew all the nuance of what that round could do. And I remember, I think it was like 2015. It was a little late to the party with it launching commercially, but I wanted to know what that round was capable of and what it could do, because I was really attracted to the fact that, like, living here in Wyoming, we have if the animal is a certain size, you can hunt antelope and deer here with the 223, but you can't hunt elk or any of the larger animals here, sheep or any of the moose or any of the larger animals with that type of round. So I was excited about the fact that for the first time I could take one of my fighting guns, one of my people hunting guns, my 2-legged critter guns, and I could go hunt 4-legged critters with a 30 caliber round. And that same gun that I shoot all year round and that I can use for defense and I can use for home protection, I can now pick that up and actually go hunting with it. And that was attractive to me when I first, got savvy to what this round was and what it could do. So I went out and I hunted a whole season just to test what it could do. And I ended up tagging out. And then my friends that I hunt with, like, they ended up using the rifle too. And I think we killed, let's see, we killed like I killed a whitetail and my muley and my antelope and my elk, all with 300 black. And we were shooting super, of course. My antelope and elk, or I'm sorry, all my deer and antelope I killed with the Barnes 110 TAC TX rounds, and they were great. Just dropped them like rocks. Yeah. And same thing with I upscaled a little bit. I went with a heavier bullet for the elk, and the only thing that I could get my hands on at the time was a 125 grain Remington OTM, but it did the job. I stocked, and I was close to him. I stocked in on him at I think about 90 yards. I got above him and the wind was good, and he was bedded down, and I managed to like spot him on glass and then maneuver in on top of him because the wind conditions were perfect. And I got down on him, and then my partner that I was with broke a branch and spooked him, and he stood up and turned broadside, and that's when I hit him. Luckily, I was in a good shooting position, hit him, dropped him too, and that was kind of a shocking moment for me, because I had doubts about what that round was going to do with an elk, and it did the job. So seeing what that could do, like, that kind of opened my eyes in 2015 to paying a lot more close attention to the wide world of ballistics and ammunition and different types of ammunition and different types of platforms, and really seeing what's out there and kind of the art of the possible. And so since that time, I've been, paying close attention to, and we've seen a whirlwind of round development, I would say, in the last 10 years with regard to, you've seen the 6.5 PRC, you've seen all the development that's coming on board with like the next generation, squad weapons contract with the military is really, I think, kind of opened their eyes to the art of the possible with what can be done. And I think that's where you guys probably have a really great opportunity. The market timing, I think, is good right now, because everybody is open-minded to, hey, let's check out what new rounds can do. And, you've seen the 300 PRC and the 300 Norma and the 338, all of these, long range rounds that are starting to pick up. And what really caught my attention, because, as I said before we, push the record button here, I've been paying very close attention to, coming from the background that I did, from the military and having an operational career, and, ending jihadis at bad breath distance. Like, I wanted, I've always been very interested in like the evolution and the next, what's the next service round going to be for, for the rifleman, or for, ground combat arms and special operations. And, me keeping a close thumb on all of that, or a close eye on all that, and seeing, Mike dropping that video with the velocities coming from your guys' round out of a 10.5, like, completely captured my attention. And I was like, holy shit, somebody finally did it. So, cause I've had conversation after conversation, and was very hopeful, when I saw the 6mm ARC come into existence, but then all the problems that the 6mm ARC has had it hasn't been small. Like, they've had their struggles with getting that round to run out of a platform without, getting gas rates right, and mainly the bolt face, like we were talking about earlier, like the bolt face issue, which is what really, where you guys really shine. So if you could, like, walk me through how you guys, like, the idea. When did the idea hit you? Like, where were you at when the idea hit you? Like, what were you doing?
I guess hunting. Had somebody show me a 350 Legend case, and they were bragging that it would go 2,500 feet per second. And I'm like, well, they go a whole lot faster if we necked it down to 6mm, and it had no concept. So I said, you want to play and do this? We'll play and do this. And started down the path, and became an evolution. And then, it became, well, can it be done? And then it went a little further and went a little further. And then kind of the defining moment was, I had goals in my mind that I knew I had to hit in order for it to be a viable cartridge, just from the ballistics that I knew, certain bullet weights, certain velocities. And I went about it, like a hobbyist or a wildcatter with there's a program out there. You can run powders and bullet weights. Quick loads. I bought quick loads. Yeah. Was it from Austria? I think is an Austrian program. And it does some things well, and it does other things really horrible, but it gets you in the ballpark safely. And I ran that program and started running the loads. And I said, I think I can get there. But I knew that if we were gonna do the cross the bridge and go take this thing from a Wildcat to a real round, a world accepted round, that we were gonna have to go to the lab. So I had to educate myself on, okay, well, what does it take to go to a lab? And it takes,
walk us through all that, please, because these are the things that I want to know.
You got to find a company. Most of the labs in this country shut down. I mean, wildcatting is just about dead, because it used to be like John Linebaugh. If you know six guns, and John Linebaugh invented 475 line ball, and he basically all the gun writers told him it was nuts, and he knew what he was doing, and he basically found White Industries, which is a pressure test lab. and he proved that his cartridge was doing the velocities at the pressures he was saying it was doing it at. And once he came from White Industries and had empirical data, then he became what we know today as John Linebaugh and got recognized for what his work. But everybody called him crazy up until that point. So I knew we had to go to the lab. In order to do that, first you have to find a lab, and White Industries is long gone. There isn't labs that are available to people off the street. I mean, just to find a lab is a nightmare. So I wound up finding EMRTC, which is Energetics Material and Test Research Center in New Mexico. And they had a pressure test lab for ballistics. And the reason they had it was because Dave Emery, he was a 26-year man from Hornaday, designed the 6.5 Creedmoor and a whole bunch of other cartridges. When he retired from Hornaday, he went and was doing military ballistics work on artillery shells, rockets, you name it. And as a hobby to him, the college allowed him to set up a small arms ballistics lab with a AILR 85 equipment. And that's exactly what we needed. So I started talking with Frank Green at Bartlett Barrels, and I said, Frank, how do I do this? How does a poor guy do this? And Frank educated me that you needed these are the tools that you need. You need a pressure calibration adapter. You need a PCB quartz crystal to read the pressure. All these tools, and they take years to build. I mean, normally they take 6 months, but I think in today's world, they're all custom custom one only built tools that cost tens of thousands of dollars that guys like me just don't do. I mean, Hornaday, Winchester, yeah, they're going to throw tens of thousands of dollars to come up with a new cartridge. Well, I decided I was going to do it. I decided I wasn't taking no for an answer. And,
I like that.
I was going to do it. And we bit off a big chunk of bubble gum and said, let's go do this. And when we got all the parts together, then we went to EMRTC, me and Mike Bouchel, my partner. And, he gets a great shout out because I couldn't do this without him. He saw the struggles I was having. I only have two hands and one bank account, and I couldn't get there. So Mike came on board, and we're pilots together at NetJets. We're both captains at NetJets, and he saw my struggles. He's like, dude, you need a partner to get through this. And I go, you're right. I said, you want to be a partner? Let's do this. So I don't know who got the better end of the stick, me or him, but he's still on board, and we're still spending money, and we're getting closer to getting it back. So, but we went to the lab. And we fired test data from 55 grain all the way up to 100 grain. And I never envisioned all the math that I ran. I never envisioned a cartridge shooting 103 grain or 105 grain or 107 grain, your high BC bullets. I just envisioned it as stopping at 100 grain hunting bullet. And that was basically the end of the cartridge. It was a little bit of naive on my behalf because I didn't measure the tip to ogive in bullets because we get new bullets every year. And I just looked at what we had and said, okay, if we can achieve this performance with this round, we had like 25 different bullets we took to the lab, and I think probably 20 different powders. So when we started firing, and I saw Dave's eyes light up, because he's like a little kid when it comes to ballistics. That's what he does. And we fired this one round. I think we were using CFE 223, and we were using it was an 87 grain burger or what it was. And we went over 3,000 feet a second at SAMI pressure. And I said, Dave, do we have a winner here? And he goes, do you have it trademarked?
Right.
That's when I knew, coming from a guy with 26 years in the industry, when he got excited like a little kid at Christmas time, that's when I knew that we had hit a home run and we actually designed something that was going to be functional for the military, and civilians, obviously. But the design always from the beginning was to improve the M4A1 or the M16, whatever variant platform you're shooting, was to give greater performance at SAMI pressure. So you're not destroying the gun. You're not putting yourself in harm's way shooting 65,000 PSI rounds, in an intermediate AR-15. It can be done. It just shortens the life of the gun, and it's just not good. I've always maintained the mentality that keep the pressure at 55,000 PSI, roughly. And if you need more performance, you need a better ballistic in your bullet, and you need more powder behind it pushing it, and you keep the pressure the same. And that's where the whole genesis came from. And then the 378 bolt head had never been done before. So we had a niche. And hopefully the military, is getting excited about it as much as we are, because all the cartridges that have came along, when you compare them, we run side by side the ARC, but we do it in a conventional manner without all the baggage, and we can go TSO on the bolt carrier group. So there's no failure points in the extractor or the bolt lugs or barrel life. Any of those things, they're a non-issue. So
And that's
we
because you've
basically
stabilized it and you're running your chamber pressure at 50. Are you guys running at 50,000 or 55,000 psi?
55,000, Sammy, and then military we bump it up to what we call a NATO load, which is the old traditional NATO load was 57,500 psi. I don't know if traditions hold much value anymore. I mean, you saw the SIG starting out at 120 and then dropped to 100, then dropped to 80, and it still got problems at 80. I mean, 80,000 psi is a proof load. That's something you fire in a gun one time to make sure to hold together. That's not something you go out and you fire full auto or repeatedly. So
Yeah, and you're speaking in reference to that 277 Fury that they're developing with
correct.
the metal-based casing. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it started life at some seriously crazy pressures, and they've reduced it down to down to about 80. But that's a highly specialized cartridge. I mean, to me, I truly believe this cartridge can be the new GI carry cartridge. It's ballistically superior to everything, and the world is going to 6mm. The Russians just released their 6mm. It looks real close to an ARC. Short, fat, and we beat their performance. I can't remember what article I was reading, and they actually put some performance numbers out on it, and we are slightly faster than what they're doing. So
so let me ask you this: how are you? So when you sit down with that 350 Legend, like how are you establishing? Is it the software that you were telling me about earlier, or how are you establishing like your neck angle and your case length? Like how did you come up with that?
It came up just running the numbers and letting them fall into place. It's like a giant rubber band. You look at the bullet you want to shoot, and you find out where the neck, where the ogive on the bullet is, and ultimately, that's going to set the end of the neck. That's one number that you can look at, and then you look at the overall length of the case. You start necking it down. The old standard was one bore on the neck, or if you're shooting a 243 bullet, your neck should be 243 long. There's no engineering behind that. That's the way we do it. So that's the way it's been done. In modern times, we've had shorter necks, we've had longer necks. They've been all over the place, and we tried to achieve that. And I came up with like a .231 neck, and have since reduced it a little bit to accommodate some different bullets. Because if you got about 200 thou grip on the bullet, you have plenty of grip, and so you have to sit down and run all those numbers. You literally have to just sit down and dissect what bullet you're shooting, and it's not a bullet. It becomes okay. It's a 6mm, so you look at the range of bullets. There's 55 grain all the way up to 100, I think 110 grain, and you have to decide which bullets you're going to shoot and will they fit the cartridge, and make a selection out of all those bullets and try to accommodate all those combinations. And it takes thousands of hours, literally, just like an accountant doing your taxes. I mean, it's that times 100, sitting there literally crunching numbers to make sure all those combinations, or at least the combinations that you want to work, make sure the numbers are going to match and work. And as far as shoulder angle, there's a lot of theory behind that. I mean, the best shoulder angle or the best funnel, if you look at fluid dynamics, is 45 degrees. Well, funnels are, that gives you the best flow. Military, you can't have a 45 degree because there's an old stigma that it's not going to feed in the chamber. They think it's going to hit the ramp and hang up. So you can't have anything, much greater than a 30 degree shoulder. Our shoulder's slightly higher than 30 degrees. But,
and so how much testing did you guys have to do to come to that? Like, like in terms of like you're
not a lot. There's not a lot. I mean, I kind of set numbers and let things fall where they fell, because I knew your diameter of the neck is set, your body length is pretty much is set. You can vary things, 5-10 thou this way or that way, but the golden number, I looked for years. I was trying to jam this thing in 2.260, just like the ARC, just like the 6.8, just like everybody before us. because that was a TSO mil spec number of 2.260 is the max length the bullet could be, or the overall cartridge length. And then it hit me like a hammer. I'm sitting in my chair, just sitting there thinking, and I'm like, you're an idiot. I'm using a 350 Legend. It comes with its own 350 Legend magazine designed and running an AR. I got my calipers out and I measured it, and I'm like, eureka. We're not doing 2.260 anymore. We're going to take this thing out to 2.300. That gave me another, 40 thou plus to achieve bullet neck ogive combination. It gave me 40 thou more powder capacity to lower pressure inside the gun. Everything fell into place when I moved the bullet out to 2.300. It was a eureka moment after
How
3
far?
years.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question. Is like, how long were you in the development process before that lightning bolt hit you?
I struggled and struggled and struggled and struggled. Then it hit, and I was like, holy shit,
Yeah.
And then we went to the lab. We used 2.300, and it all fell into place, And then we knew we had something. And then from there, it's just constant tweaking. Best twist rate angle for best bullet for this, for that. Those are all just tweaks. Those aren't fundamental changes or design issues at that point.
So is the round SAAMI spec'd?
It is not SAAMI approved. It is built to SAAMI specs, meaning I did all my testing when I went to the lab. Everything I did was under SAAMI protocols, and all our engineering reports are per SAAMI, that the round was tested per SAAMI guidelines. The difference is if I'd have had SAAMI sitting in the room and watching, they would have said, yeah, you passed. I didn't go to SAAMI. I just said, hey, I took their rule book and said, how do we do this? And I applied their rule book to my cartridge, knowing that one day I needed to SAAMI certify it. So we did all our testing per SAAMI guidelines.
Okay, so then let me, because these are the things that I'm super curious about. Now, I don't know if this is true or not, but hopefully you guys can illuminate this for me. If you send something to SAAMI and their board looks at it and they certify it, does that make it open source?
Yes.
Okay, so then that's because that was my question, is like, how are you guys protecting your intellectual property around this round and developing this? Because it's always been really confusing to me. I'm like, how the hell does anybody make money? Well, first of all, how do you protect your IP, and how do you make any money if you send this to SAAMI and they certify it and they make it open source, and now every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants to load ammunition, and these bigger ammo companies like Winchester can just sweep in and be like, oh yeah, we'll take that. And then they start loading it. And then, that's your round that you've developed, that you've spent thousands and thousands, Lord knows how much money you spent.
Once it goes SAAMI, you lose the ability to monetize it.
So. Yeah. So then so my question has always been, to some of these other small bullet developers is like, what's the benefit of getting it SAAMI spec'd if you lose your IP and it becomes open source and then you can no longer monetize it? Like, where's the business case there?
Well, they're going to have to write you a check, basically. If Winchester or Hornady or whoever steps up to the plate and says, we want to take this thing, to the big leagues and make it global, they're just going to have to sit down and write you a big check and make you happy.
Okay.
And then you go, there it is. It's yours.
Okay. I wasn't sure, like, so is that in terms, like, so then if you were to submit a round to SAAMI and they were to certify it, is that kind of like your poor man's like bullet patent or whatever, where you take it to them and they're like, and they certify it, and then that IP does belong to you, and if a larger company does want to load, then they have to.
No, when you have to allow it to go in public domain in order to submit to SAAMI. Okay. So once you decide that you want SAAMI approval, you relinquish all rights to that cartridge as part of the submittal to SAAMI. And all they do is they don't approve you. They basically, because they don't assume the liability, they basically say that the cartridge conforms to the rules of SAAMI, that it's in conformity.
So then, what's the benefit of like getting your stuff SAAMI certified? What would be the benefit of that?
One benefit of SAAMI is it allows you to go global. You either have to be SIP or you have to be SAAMI. SIP, was it the SIP? I guess is Europe, all of Europe and all that, and we're SAAMI on this side of the pond. You either have to have SAAMI approval or you have to have approval in Europe, for it to leave the country, and that's one benefit. If you're large enough and you're in manufacturing, then you want to expand your product globally. That's the way you do it.
Got
But
it.
right now, we're not really chasing the global market. We're more interested in supplying our boys an intermediate cartridge that outshoots all the 2.62 ammo that we left in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
That's what we're about.
I think you guys are doing it. What's your sweetheart load so far? Like, what have you seen that's getting the best bang for buck in terms of velocity out of what I call like a fighting length gun? So in that kind of that 10-3 to.
I would say from all the game that we've harvested, the 90 grain ELDX has been a killing bullet. It's been a one shot killing bullet on everything that we've shot with it, and it's doing out of a 14 and a half inch upper, it's doing roughly 2,600 feet per second.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We've shot, I don't know, the amount of hogs that we've shot with it are, I know Texas Parks and Wildlife went out a couple of weeks ago doing a hog night hunt, and they killed over 30 hogs with it. Most of them one shot kills. And we've killed a hog under thermal. We did a hunt where we met Ray Helms, and James Penske was a rider that was there. He took a 20
inch with a
20
455 yards.
Yeah, he took a thermal and whacked a 250 pound boar at 455 yards and dumped it. So the lethality of that combination is pretty amazing.
We shot two.
What's your guys' twist?
1 and 8 predominantly
1 and 8.
For the last 3.5-4 years. We've done 1 and 8. Some of the comp guys are doing 1 and 7.5. We've picked up a little BC on the heavy bullets with a 7.5, but that's really a competition arena. It makes for normal guys, it's not measurable, and it makes no meaningful difference. 1 and 8 does the whole spectrum from 55 grain all the way to 107 grain bullet.
And what have you guys seen the difference in tissue of shooting a lighter, faster bullet versus that 90 grain bullet? Like, have you seen, is the what I would say is the terminal effects still relatively similar if you're shooting, like if you shoot if you're shooting a 58 grain?
Because of the bullet technology is come so far. The quality of bullets that we have now, the terminal ballistics are just phenomenal. Even at 2,700 feet a minute, you're still getting massive hydrostatic shock, and you're getting like the autopsy I did. I shot an 8-point last year, and I shot him straight in the brisket, quartering, facing to me, and it liquefied everything in the middle, broke all the ribs on the offside, and all the charge wound up in the hide, and the deer dropped instantly like it was hit by a lightning bolt. Didn't even twitch. So
wow, okay.
The effectiveness of bullets now, the jacket thickness, they've got a real good handle on the ballistic tip. There's just so much going on with the lethality of bullets now. It's phenomenal. Versus the old days, we had Remington Core-Lock, and it would mushroom about the size of a quarter, and punch a hole through both sides, and it was effective too. It's just different terminal ballistics. A lot of guys, like they always said, like a hole on both sides, let the air out, let the air in and the blood out, and
yeah.
Now the bullets are kind of in between that, where they go in and they explode and turn everything to jelly, and they're just instant.
Yeah, my son shot it with a 90 ELDX out of the 6 Max, shot a whitetail season before last, and I mean, it was a perfect broadside right behind the shoulder, and there was nothing distinguishable as heart or lungs left in the cavity. It expended 100% of its energy in the cavity, so the effect was just absolutely devastating.
Yeah,
just completely liquefying the internals.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good round. So then, how long have you guys been testing this like on tissue for?
Well, I guess probably 12 months, 18 months.
Yeah, I was just gonna add two weekends ago. This was not a hunt by any. This was just strictly a harvest. But we shot 2 call cow elk. One of them, they were both headshots. One of them was right behind the ear, and both of them dropped. The other one was just basically right underneath the eyes, just straight on. And just jellied everything inside. And
is so then when you're taking headshots versus torso shots, like, are you seeing like a complete deconstruction of the skull cavity or
Oh yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah.
It just. I mean, it didn't blow it open. The one of them was like 155, and the other one was like 130, 130 yards range. And there again with the 90 grain. But it kept all the energy inside the skull cavity.
Oh wow, okay. But just dropping big animals like
Just
bricks, huh?
dropping in.
Yeah. Well,
Okay, that's
the
exciting.
neat,
I like to
yeah,
hear
and
that.
the neat thing, I designed this from the beginning as a recce rifle because of the velocity and heavier projectile and being able to reach out. But the reality is, it's also an assaulter rifle, and it has some unique applications that have been pointed out. Our effective range by the think tankers, we're basically taking an assaulter rifle now and putting its effective kill range out to 615 yards for the GI with no training.
And what barrel
So
length is that? Is that a 14.5 or is that a
14.5.
what
Yeah.
are you guys seeing in terms of performance on what I call the fighting guns? Those you're talking about your Mark 18 length, like your 10.3 to your 11.5, because I think the new Block 3 Mark 18 for SOF is an 11.5 1-7, if I'm not mistaken. So what kind of performance are you guys seeing, and what bullet weight
Well,
are
you're
you
gonna
guys seeing that runs the
if
best?
you put a 55 grain bullet in there to do the comparison to a 5.56, you're going to see 11 and a half. You're going to see 3,200 feet per second out of a 10.5 inch barrel. Basically,
Oh,
we've
that is
pushed it up to that.
smoking.
Yeah, we
So
were that video that you mentioned earlier with Sons. That was 32. Probably averaged just under 3,200, but there were a few shots that broke to 3,200 feet per second out of a 10.5 inch
so
barrel.
the
So if
That's insane velocity.
I mean, really,
Yeah.
to kind of summarize the whole thing, you're getting 300 to 400 feet per second velocity increase, weight for weight, barrel length for barrel length
yeah,
over the 5.56.
and the
So whether it's a 55 or 62 or 69 or 77, in whatever length barrel, you're gaining 300 to 400 feet per second of velocity.
yeah.
So you're extending your effective range. You're increasing penetration, increasing kinetic energy on target, increasing penetration.
So if you look at energy, you're adding 400 feet a second to your Mark 262 round. And if you look at distance, if you run the BC of that bullet, you're adding about another 150 yards roughly. That 400 feet a second would gain you another 150 yards of where it would impact the same energy as, the 262 round. Put it in perspective, we're putting out 1,750 pounds of energy out of the muzzle, and we're doing it with a bullet that carries its BC downrange. So our gun hits harder at 300 yards than if you put the barrel on your chest and pull the trigger with a 262.
Oh wow.
That's the difference in energy. If you get shot with a max, at 300 yards, you've been hit with a Mark 262 at point blank. That's the equivalent in terminal ballistics.
And you're doing all this with not putting structural deficiencies into the weapon system.
Yeah.
You're not structurally
Right.
compromising the bolt or the extractor or the lugs. You're not excessively pinning the bolt or anything. And this is kind of more of a mathematical explanation on this part, but you're 9% larger bore diameter with only 8% more propellant capacity. So depending on how you define barrel life, you should have the same or possibly slightly better barrel life because it's a more efficient cartridge.
Yeah.
Efficiency is the name of the game.
I mean, comparatively, you're like I think a comparison that a lot of people could understand, especially your deer hunters. You're roughly weight for weight 200 feet a second slower than a 243 Winchester, but with roughly 15 grains less powder.
Yeah, we run our 70 grain Sierra Blitzking load at semi pressure. We can run it 140 feet or 160 feet slower than a 243.
Wow.
It was significantly less propellant.
243
right?
is burning 40 something grains of powder, and we're burning 20 something grains of powder. So that's a difference. It's a highly efficient cartridge, and you're not over bore. So people always ask, well, what's the barrel life of that crazy performance? It's exactly the same as the 223. I've got 3,600 rounds downrange out of my Barrett, and it's still holding half MOA. It does have firecracking in the barrel, but it hasn't given up accuracy yet.
And did a podcast with Sons. One of the things we talked about is barrel life. Is, I mean, you have to clarify, what are your parameters? I mean, are we talking, bench rest level precision, hunting level precision, minute of man level precision? Obviously those are all different parameters, that you can apply to effective, to barrel life. So that's kind of one of those almost, undefinable parameters until somebody provides you with saying, I need it to do this at this level. How long can it do that for?
Right. Yeah. The whole basically use case and falling back on like, what is your definition of like barrel failure? Is it a loss in FPS? Is it a loss in accuracy? What is your definition? Correct.
Yeah. Because, like so I always kind of draw comparison as a PRS shooter, like as a PRS shooter, if you were come to me and say, hey, what kind of barrel life could I get out of my 6XC or my 6GT or my 6 Creed or whatever? Well, I could give you an answer based on the fact that we're probably on the same page going, okay, well, when I start to see my velocity drop off and my velocity extreme spread open up, that's generally on several of those cartridges I mentioned going to happen somewhere around 2 to 2,500 rounds. But it's still printing nice, tight little groups. And it would still be an effective hunting level precision for probably generations, based on the schedule of fire of a hunting rifle versus the schedule of fire of a comp rifle versus the schedule of fire of a machine gun.
Right. And have you guys managed to torch a barrel with a military style, basically a 14.5 length? Have you guys managed to?
We have not done an extensive burn down test.
No, we haven't. We haven't burned one down yet. That's coming.
Do you have one? Like, what's your highest round count on one of your rifles that you've got?
Probably my Barrett DMR with about 3,600 rounds on the barrel that it's got on it now. I mean,
and then what's the grain that you guys have been primarily shooting? Have you guys been just basically, since you're getting that 90 grain to perform so well on tissue, is that what you've been primarily focused on?
It's been predominantly 80 to 90, and also the heavy stuff. It's the light stuff shoots great, and we really don't have reason to shoot the light stuff that much because we're not coyote hunting or anything like that. We're basically checking the BCs of the 90 grain bullets and the 103 grain bullets and the 105s and the 107s, and I think that's where most of our testing is taking place now. So that's most of our round counts, the heavy bullet stuff.
And then what's max that you've stretched it out to? Like, where have you guys pushed this thing out past
1 mile?
1 mile.
Oh wow!
I went 5 in a row at 1,500, and then I handed it to a buddy of mine, and he smacked the mile target with it.
Oh wow! And then what's the barrel length that you guys are running on that shooting out that at those distances?
On that one, that was a 28-inch barrel.
Yeah, we call it the truck axle.
That was an H250 full bolt, 28-inch long barrel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, it wasn't a 10.5. I did. We were down, and I was doing running a bunch of projectiles through I've got an Ailer 89 system, which is technically for measuring time of flight, and that's how we derive what the actual BC for each flight is. To come up with a true BC average for that projectile out of that weapon system. And I had the 10.5 barrel with me. And so when I was done, I went ahead and slapped it on, put the scope on it, got a good 0, and then shot it through the Ailer to verify the BC on it. And then I went 8 shots out of 10 on an 18-inch square. Now this was, like 2 to 3 mile an hour wind, sitting at a bench. This wasn't like, this is perfect conditions, but hit 8 out of 10 at 1,000 with it. Out of a 10.5 with the that was a 90 grain Lapua Cinar, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh wow!
And so really the thing that we're learning from a lot of that is it's handling transition very well. Going from supersonic through transonic and into subsonic range.
Yeah.
So
Ray Helms has shot the 90 grain Skinar in the Sniper's Unknown. He shot it, and I guess they went out to just a hair over 1,300 yards, and he finished 14th, and. He had 10 out of 30 hits, I think is what he said. It was 30 shots. He had 10 out of 30 at over 1,300 yards.
I think that was positionally shooting too.
Yeah, positionally. And that was, he likes the 90 grain bullet. It does 2,900 feet per second with a 206 G7. And it shoots so flat that he doesn't have to do math. And and he's good at math. I mean, you watch the guy shoot it. Just I'm glad he's on our side.
Yeah, right. What's
I
the
mean,
barrel? What barrel length is he using for that?
He's 22 inch.
Yeah, he's
he's
doing
running
it.
a 22 inch.
22 inch. Okay.
Yeah, and he just fell in love with that little 90 grain bullet. And I can't get him away from it. I keep telling him, look, if you're going to shoot the unknown and you're going to 1,300 yards, let me give you a bullet that's designed to fly that far. He's like, no, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm shooting a 90. I said, okay.
Right.
You know,
You're the man.
and that's one of the attributes that I always like to kind of hit upon is, you know, comparatively, you know, in a military role, you know, with your 5.56, your practical limit is generally 55 to 77. Now you've got the same weapon system, but now you're taking it from 55 to up to 107. So you can have one person, for example, that's running a 10 or 11 or 12, you know, that's what it's maybe in a CQB role, but you can also have someone in a DMR role on an Overwatch or whatever the case may be, shooting a 90 or a 103 or 105 or 107, but all of your ammunition's interchangeable.
Yeah.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Instead of having to have different cartridges,
Yeah, the performance
one
is
cartridge
there.
that can fulfill many
The
roles.
precision is there. You could literally go onto the battlefield with 2 bullets, a light bullet, you know, or I guess you could say 3 bullets. You could have a personnel round, your full metal jacket, whatever. You could have an AP round, and you could have a heavy high BC round, and you've covered everything you need to do, literally.
And what's so let me ask you this. What have you guys had anybody from the military approach you guys yet and ask for samples to test?
We've had, I don't know, would you call them the fringes? The guys showed up at Vegas and did shoot our gun from 2 branches, and we asked them afterwards what they think, and they basically, there was 2 guns at SHOT Show this year that they thought were really cool. That there was a 5-inch long barreled 12 gauge shotgun with a Huxworks can on it. It was doorbuster, and our 6
A breacher gun. Yeah.
breacher gun, and our 6 Max with a 10.5-inch barrel doing 3,000 feet a second. And they said we had the coolest gun at SHOT Show. That was their response.
Good.
So that made us pretty happy. And
Good.
then post tense, the headhunters have come calling, and it's going the direction we want it to go. We're in a month or 2 away from putting it in front of people that matter. So
Good. I like to hear that. And you know, everybody's an overnight success in just short 10 years, right?
Exactly. I had black hair when I started this.
Yeah.
And you know, and
goes.
that's one of the things that people just, you know, have a hard time grasping is the sheer amount of hours we put in developing loads, testing those loads. You know, in my shop, I've got pressure equipment. It's not an AILER 85 system; it's a strain gauge system. But then, you know, the equipment is very accurate. But then once we've kind of narrowed it down to certain things, then that's taken and tested on the industry approved equipment, the AILER 85 M85 system. But just the number of rounds, I mean, I've got piles and piles of brass from, you know, just testing this temperature testing temperature extremes. You know, here recently we were running stuff at an ambient temperature, you know, 70 degrees and 52% humidity, and then cooking the same, you know, loading, say 20 rounds and shooting 10 of it at ambient and have 10 of it cooking in an oven at 125 degrees to see what kind of temperature differential we're getting, how many feet per second per degree, you know, for this powder, that powder, you know, it's an incredible amount of time, effort, and energy to get to the end results.
Yeah, it consumes you. I mean, you have to. It's like being a race car driver or anything else. You have to eat it, live it, sleep it, and breathe it. You know, and
Correct.
You know, I got the wife involved and my daughter. She's 13, and I got her boxing up ammo, and I've showed that wife how to inspect cases. You know, what's a good case, what's a dented case, what's a cracked neck. You know, it's like it just consumes you, and that's all. You know, I work 2 full-time jobs. I'm a captain of NetJets, and I work 7 days on, 7 days off, and basically I work 2 full-time jobs. I figure out on my week at work flying a jet, I line my schedule out for my week that I'm going to be home with the family, and over here at Clark's. You know, it's like after this podcast,
Right.
we're going to set up the pressure test barrel and test some more powders.
Good. I like to hear that. Yeah. The road to success. It goes up the mountain pretty steep sometimes. So like you either pay for it, you pay for it in time, resources, you compromise a lot of things, but at the end of the day, it's always, in my opinion, worth it to captain your own ship. Like
I
I've
agree.
I've done the whole like work for people in a corporate setting, served in the military, and then just ran my own shop. And there's no better satisfaction than I've ever had than running my own shop. So my hats are off to you guys. I know how hard it is to get stuff out there and get it in production. So what
Yeah.
do you guys, what's kind of your let's say what's your near term goals for the next couple of years? Like where do you guys want to see the company scale to, and like what are your big ticket items that you're trying to accomplish over the next 2 years?
Bringing ammunition to market in masses has been a huge hurdle, and I think we're there. We're going to know, pretty darn quick. We've conquered a lot of the issues with mass production ammunition. We've got Starline. They've been on board since day one. I used to call Hunter every other week trying to get brass, and it's been a little over 4-year evolution, and he's been on board since day one. So he's supplying us all the brass we can handle. And then we've got another munitions manufacturer on board to make and load ammo, not just myself, but now we have a load house on board that's tooled up. It's going to be spitting out ammunition as fast as we can feed them brass. And then we have a third ammunition company that's going to be coming on board. If everything works out, we'll make an announcement here pretty darn quick. That's going to be monumental for advancing this project down the road this year, is getting ammunition to people, getting it on the shelves, getting it through Brownells or RSR or sitting on the Walmart shelf, that's the big confidence factor people have, is like, you have an incredible round, but can I buy it? Is it accessible? Yeah. And that's not an easy one to overcome. And I think we're on the road to do that. It's
so you guys are gonna load your own and have a certain amount of production bandwidth, and then you guys are also teaming with a large mainstream manufacturer they're also going to put out ammo out as well. Okay.
Yeah.
And then
I had to build all those bridges,
right.
I literally formed all the cases and continue to form the cases. And I had to do that. I had to go to Lyman and work with the engineers at Lyman. And it was a big eureka moment, because Lyman owns Mark 7 equipment, and they're the commercial reloading machines, fully automated, computerized. And I went to them last year at SHOT Show, and I sat down with them and I said, look, I'm kind of crazy, but I'm gonna ask you some questions. And they brought the engineers over, and I said, this is what I want to do. This machine's designed to load ammunition, but I says, does it have the nuts to bend the brass? And they thought about it for a minute, and they, had a little meeting, and they go, yeah, we believe it does. They said, when you're loading ammunition, you're only using about 20% of the clutch capacity in this machine. And they asked me what case was I going to bend. And I told them it was, about 12 thou wall thickness. It was a 350 Legend. They said that shouldn't be a problem. And I said, has it ever been done before? And they said, no, you're the first. And I said, well, let's go. So then I got the machine, and I had engineering meetings with Tom Griffin, the head engineer, the senior guy, the old gray fox at Lyman. And I says, can we design these dies to work on this? And he goes, yeah, I think we can do this. So there again, we jumped off into the deep end of the swimming pool and bought a machine that was, incredibly expensive, never been used the way we were going to use it. And then had dies designed and got those dies back and proved it all out, got it working, and built the bridge to the next phase. And I have the ability now to produce, about 10,000 rounds a day in ammunition.
Oh, wow.
And
that's not small.
That's not small. When that machine, every time that machine goes ka-chunk, ka-chunk, it's $1 bill.
Yeah.
So that's $10,000 a day. It's like, holy crap, turn the thing off.
Yeah.
But now we have Dale Hallmark from True Ballistics. He's in Kennedy, and he has the next level. The real machines, the alpha machines, are about $500,000, and he's a full blown load house. And he's adopted us, and he's going to start loading our ammo for us. So it's going to be ourselves. It's going to be True Ballistics in Kennedy, and then the big ammunition manufacturer. Hopefully, we're going to make an announcement in the next 30 days or so. and they not only make brass, but they also load the ammunition as well. So there'd be 3 different sources of ammunition coming to the market here pretty darn quick. And we've been able to keep up with the supply so far. But that gets back to the original question. That's a milestone this year is to ramp up the ammunition and to ramp up the amount of rifles that are out there. And that's where Sons came in. You know, we knew to be a success, you know, it all ties back into the SAAMI and monetizing this cartridge. You have to get big enough, fast enough that nobody can steal you. They have to recognize you for what you've done. And if they do want to steal you, then they're going to look like what they are, you know?
Correct.
So that's,
there's a lot of that. Unfortunately, there's a lot of that out there. So,
yeah. You know,
so you guys are doing it right.
You know, so Clark introduced me to Sons of Liberty, and we built that relationship over a year. When Clark saw what the round was capable of, he immediately thought of Mike and Kyle, and we demonstrated the gun probably 4 or 5 different times before Mike instantly got it. You know, he's an AR guy, and he instantly got it. He said, "This thing's going to wreck shit." He goes, "You fucking got a home run here." He goes, "I'm not sure how we're going to bring it to the world, but you really have something here." And
then, how long have you guys been working with the Sons?
Officially, we signed an agreement back in December, and we're married for a year to bring this cartridge to the world. But we've been working with them for probably about 2 years.
Okay.
And
yeah, I've got Mike on tap. Like I tried to run him down. I finally got a hold of Carlo this last week, and they rogered up on email and confirmed they want to do a podcast slot. So I'm going to break Mike's balls really good and be like, "Hey, Brian beat you. Brian and Clark beat you to the punch, sucker. You should."
I had to laugh.
Nothing wrong with a little competition.
You know, Preacher's in armor down there, and we had the 12 and a half, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 12 and a half, and he was having fun with it.
I think he took it over to Arena.
Yeah, he took it to Arena. He was teaching a class
or taking a class.
Or
over at Arena in Georgia.
Yeah, with and Big Tex Ordnance was there, and he pulls out this 12 and a half, and he swings his Kestrel around, and he put some dope on the scope, and he pulled the trigger, first round impact 750, 12 and a half suppressed, and they're like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. Yeah, so, I've been saying for a long time, I think the 12 and a half is your sweetheart length between, a kind of an SPR variant and an assaulter variant. Like that barrel length is short enough that, like, even if you throw a can on it, you've got great maneuverability and concealability, and then it's also just long enough to where you can reach out in that, if you know what you're doing and you're a good shooter, in that 600 to 800,
so just
pretty easy.
Just basically just to kind of prove a point, I actually ran a 12.5 running, I think I was running 87 burgers, but I shot a PRS club match with it with a 12.5.
And how
really, I mean, what was limiting in shooting that wasn't the cartridge. It was how much, a little 12 and a half inch AR bucks when you're on, shooting positionally, and,
right.
The ability to stay in the scope and see splash became, way more difficult than if you're shooting a 22-pound, PRS gun,
Right.
So seeing the splash and being able to make corrections was really the only handicapping factor. I mean, the cartridge was fine, but did it just to prove it could be done. So.
Yeah,
I like it. What were the max range, or what were the max ranges on the targets that you were hitting?
Target in that match, I want to say, was probably 890, 920, somewhere in that range.
And you banged on that, no problem.
I don't think I hit every time, but I hit. I'm trying to remember. It's been over a year ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, reaching out to the distance was not a problem.
We shoot sub MOA no problem with a 103 grain, doing over 2,500 feet per second. So the ballistics of that 12 and a half inch barrel over 2,500 feet per second, we'll call it a 265 G7. You're shooting 1,000 yards very easily, supersonic.
Nice.
So, that's what we're giving, the military if they want it. All they got to do is change a magazine and change a barrel.
Nice. And you're giving it to them in that 12.5 length?
Whatever length they want it in.
Whatever length they want, yeah.
I've heard, 14.5, they keep flipping back and forth between a recce rolling and a salter roll.
Yeah.
So,
as they will. And I have a feeling what they'll end up doing is that because they have the equipment, they're going to want they're going to want loads specific to probably both of their platforms for an SPR variant for accuracy and distance, and then for their assaulter variant. It's like kind of what I found out in my time in my time was what I found was shooting the 70 grain Barnes 5.56 out of the shorter guns. It did a little bit better than the 262 does, and the 262 did really well in anything basically in that 14.5 to 20 inch length. It just slays. But that little bit lighter of a bullet did better out of a shorter gun. So what I'd surmise is that during their testing process, they're going to come up with like, hey, we want this particular grain of bullet for our assaulters, and we want this particular grain of bullet for our recce, sniper observer teams. So I'm super excited for you guys.
Yeah, and we're currently working on an AP and an API round.
Okay, good. You read my mind. That was the next question. What are we doing to penetrate that Soviet and Chinese body armor?
Yeah, so it's it ain't going to be a problem. We've shot through level 4 body armor with solid copper bullets.
Oh, nice.
With just the velocity.
Just the velocity of the things.
It wasn't on purpose. It was, we were using a level 4 as a safety net we were shooting in a ballistics lab, but it was a semi truck. Basically, it's a mobile ballistics lab. So we're shooting through ballistic, not gel, but it's kind of this rubber that looks like Swiss cheese, this ballistic rubber. And then we had a level 4 behind that. And then we had a steel plate AR-500 behind that. And we shot and we heard metal and we're like, holy shit. So we went back and looked and we're like, yep, it went through everything. We better stop doing this.
And what was the what grain were you guys shooting for that?
It was
77.
It was, I believe it was 77 grain solid copper or 65 grain solid copper, and
it was 65.
It was a full length barrel, so we were shooting some crazy hyper velocities. We were like 3,700 feet per second. But it was solid. It was actual solid copper. There was no hollow point. There was anything. It was a solid, lathe turn copper bullet. And it just, we're like, these things, we need to treat them like APs because they're doing stupid things.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When you're penetrating that much and hitting the steel backstop plate, that's substantial. So
yeah, we were
awesome.
We were really thankful the AR-500 stopped it.
That's fantastic. I'm super excited for you guys.
They're going to be fun. We're working with a Red Mountain Arsenal, which is predominantly military, and we'll work with those guys going to do all the AP testing out there shortly. And hopefully we can advance the ranges because the velocities are there.
So are you guys, in terms of your long-term plan and strategy, are you going to, are you setting yourself up and partitioning yourself to not only develop your commercial market, but also your military market simultaneously? Or will you guys basically take the first opportunity and scale that as it comes?
No, to us, it's going to be, I believe it's going to be the military. I mean, the commercial side is a slow, arduous process, and I don't believe we're going to be able to quit our full-time jobs over the commercial application. But I think if the military gets on board, I'd happily quit flying jets to go full-time to advance this cartridge for the military.
Advance it and develop it. Yeah, good. Yeah. Good. I mean, was that your primary goal to start with, or were you okay? So your primary goal was to support the boys. And then commercial market.
I looked at that EPR round, and that was just, to me, that was a disaster. You know, I mean, it was a quick fix to a problem we had, but that really turned the light bulb right on to me that if the intermediate cartridge is going to survive, it's going to take a redesign because we just can't shoot those high pressures. I mean,
and I think you could apply the term force multiplier to it, because if you could take your load out, right, and change your barrel and change your mag, still have 30 round mags, but this time now they're straight as opposed to curved, so it should play nicer with mag pouches. Your cases don't weigh anymore. Your projectiles, I mean, if you're shooting 55 versus 55 or 77 versus, your projectiles don't weigh anymore. The only increase in weight is slightly, a few more grains of powder in the case, but that's negligible in the overall scheme of things. But yet you're gaining 300 to 400 feet per second increase in velocity, increase in kinetic energy, increase in penetration, increase in effective range. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
With no additional loadout,
no
weight wise, on the soldier.
Yeah, we've basically added 30 to 40% in lethality ballistics, however you want to play the model. We've given the ability in that unmodified platform 30 to 40% more in conventional manner.
Yeah, and you're not structurally compromising the weapon system to get that gain.
So
You're
in
running
all
at
of
the
the
pressure it was designed to operate at, and you're running, without modifying the bolt or anything else. So your reliability should be absolutely the same.
yeah, I don't see a downside. But let me ask you this: in your opinion, what are the limitations of the design? Like you've got all of these great performance variables that you just outlined that are in the pro column. What's in the con column?
I mean, from an equipment standpoint, like Brian mentioned, it's a 2.3 case overall length, right, stem to stern. It will not work in a polymer magazine because you need thicker wall thickness to maintain the strength in that polymer magazine. That's why all the magazines are metal mags.
It won't work in a current polymer, but I think if somebody wanted to design a polymer magazine, I think it could be done real easy. They just have to make up their mind, hey, we're going to re-engineer this, and it'd be done. It's just
Magpul will probably jump on board the second you guys get a government contract. That's how it always is. No one wants to touch it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But yeah, so currently I would say one limiting factor to that is it's not going to work in a polymer magazine because of the needed wall thickness and under current designs to have the strength that it needs.
Got it.
So that's gonna limit you to your metal mags, and that's right now I think sometime in the next 4 weeks should have magazines, 6mm max magazines coming out from Duramag.
Yeah, correctly labeled.
30-round mags have been and are in testing. They've been fielded in competition, and they've run flawlessly.
Straight 30s?
The next 30s.
Are they straight?
That'll be the next.
Yeah, straight. Okay. Yeah, everything's straight.
And then have you guys approached Magpul or any of the other polymer magazines? Because realistically, if this is a limitation, if this is one of your limiting factors of the design, like there is some logistical things because obviously, as you guys probably already know, like Marine Corps is all PMags. So if you want to get this round pushed into, big Marine Corps, big Army, the special mission unit guys will always they can always procure whatever they need to complete their mission gear wise. So that's not an issue for them. But anybody outside of that circle at JSOC, like on the larger conventional force, that is going to be an issue for you guys. Are you guys making plans to try and figure out how to crack the code on that? And have you talked to any polymer mag companies to start doing?
We haven't so far. This thing is an evolution, and there's 3 of us plus sons, and we just stay buried. And I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but we stay buried in performance oriented, applications, the small stuff, and we try to put our hats on and do those things. But I think we're definitely limited in that capacity because we're just so focused. We're like a deer with blinders, a horse with blinders on in one direction, and at some point, we're going to have to pull the blinders off and go in multiple directions for sure.
But I think
I'd say the phase of where you guys are at right now, it's not a bad thing to be obsessed and laser focused on accomplishing performance and awareness of what this round can do is not a bad thing. I'm just
all the
when we're looking down the road.
And precision,
right.
Performance and precision. If it attains the level of commercial success that we believe it can, and it gets adopted maybe into certain groups, within DoD, which I think it has great potential too. I think the polymer mag issue will work itself out.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't want to say it's arrogance, but I think once you start getting recognized by the right people, they're going to, it's like Field of Dreams, you build it and they will come.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. Like, President Reagan had trickle down economics. I've always said trickle down tactonomics is a thing where you get you get a piece of gear, whatever it may be in the adopted or in the hands of the boys, at the special mission unit level, and it will just trickle down from there. It trickles from JSOC to USASOC to AFSOC to MARSOC to NSW. And then once, a majority of the commercial market knows that the boys that hunt people professionally for a living or using your equipment, everybody wants to, commercially at that point jump on board so that they can play as well with whatever products that they have. So I would agree that you're probably correct. If you guys can get traction at that level, everybody will be coming to knock on your door soon enough.
It was it was pleasant this year. I couldn't get Clark to go to SHOT Show, but one of these years he's going to go. I'm going to drag him. But last year nobody knew who we were. I mean, it was first time out of the gate, and we were married with kind of with sons, but not really. And this year we went and we were the most talked about cartridge on the planet, and it kind of blew me away. It was kind of surreal that everybody was coming to find me, and it kind of scared me a little bit.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, what have we done here?
Yeah,
No,
one of
that's
the
fantastic.
highlights stories that I heard from a few sources that the K and H and K sought the round out at range day, wanted to shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got to meet Dr. Ayler and my partner
Nice.
Buchel. He's German, so Dr. Cook's entourage, his alphabet group, came to Sun's booth, and he came to Sun's, and he came over to me, and I was showing him the weapon. And I didn't even know who the heck he was, and his boys are over there telling Buchel, he goes, who the hell that is talking to your partner? And he goes, no, he said, that's Dr. Cook. And so Buchel started talking to him in German, and they hit it off. So he goes, they got a picture of me and Dr. Cook, and
Coke, I think it's
or Coke. Yeah,
Coke.
I mean, my same name was the same. Hell, we might be related, My name was changed. Germans were bad people after they tried to conquer the world back in World War I, And but so we got a picture and they sent it to me. So there's me and Dr. Cook standing there, and he shot the weapon, and then he asked me to tell him about it, and he said he was impressed. So I was like, wow, I just got to meet the K and H and K.
I love that. That's a great story. How long have you guys, in terms of like being more mainstream commercially noticed, when did that happen? Did all of this kind of like spiral when Mike released that video on YouTube of the FPS testing on the 10.5? Or
it really happened when we met Ray Helms. Chris, I can't remember Chris's last name, but he owns Sport South Distributors, and he owns
Fusion
Thermals
and Interstate Firearms.
Okay. He invited Sons of Liberty to a thermal hog hunt. Chris bought that thermal company, and he totally renovated that thermal. And it's an insanely high quality thermal. I mean, I had never my preordained vision or knowledge of what a thermal was severely outdated. When I looked through a scope, I was like, holy crap. You can see the rust on lug nuts on a tractor, 60, 70 yards away. I mean, it's just insane. So we got Sons got invited to that hog hunt, and Chris said, hey, bring something that's long range. We want to stretch this thermal out. So it was a natural thought process that we're already involved in the Max. So Mike says, hey guys, you're going to a thermal hog hunt. And we're like, we are. So we brought two Maxes over there, the 16-inch and the 20-inch, and they threw the thermals on them. And they had Ray Helms was there, and a whole bunch of gun riders. And we got to meet Ray, and Ray got to shoot not only the two guns that we brought for the hunt, but he also got to shoot Clark's PRS gun that's built in 6 Max. So once he shot that, he fell in love with it, and that really started the ball rolling. Ray got excited. He goes, do you mind can we do a video, like an impromptu right now? I want to interview you guys because this is pretty crazy what I'm seeing here. And we're like, yeah, okay. So Ray did an impromptu video shoot with me and Mike, and he launched it, and it just went nuts instantly. I mean, it's got, 50,000 or 54,000 views on his X-Ring channel, and that was really the beginning of the public review in a big way of the cartridge. And then from there, it just blossomed. Everybody heard about it and started calling, and and it stirred the pot. I think that was the moment right there, the Ray Helms moment. He on X-Ring, he launched us.
He's got a great channel. I follow him. I haven't had the pleasure to meet him yet, but he in person. But I love his channel. I'm a big fan of him. And then I watch 9-hole reviews quite a bit. Both of those guys are really good for. Yeah, but both of those channels really good for like in the weeds type technical data on particular platforms. So that's why I really enjoy watching both of those channels. And how long ago did this? Because I found
October of last year.
Yeah,
so 5 months, okay. 4 months. Yeah.
Okay.
And then
so things scaled pretty hard, pretty heavy.
You referenced. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What?
I just said things scaled very quickly after that, and
Oh
are
yeah,
pretty hard
yeah.
and heavy
And then
for you.
another
Yeah,
another big one was the with the Mahalski when we went out there and he was doing the side by side heads up, comparable bullet weights, 55 versus 55, 62 versus 62, and with between the 5.56 and the 6 max with the those were 14 fives, and then shooting the 10.5 with the no, I'm sorry, they were both 10.5s, weren't
They were both 10 and a half,
that's
yeah,
right.
10.5
10
inch
and a half.
guns, and we matched comparable bullet weights the best we could. And it's funny because you tell people your performance, and they're so used to people embellishing, that they're like, you're basically full of shit. You can't do this.
Well, that's what
So-
I'm going to be completely honest. That's what got my attention was that video that Mike did with the side by side with
Yeah.
the
that generated
the
a
chrono.
tremendous amount of
Yeah,
interest.
10.5 inch barrel, 3,200 feet per second. I mean, that's running wide ass open. I mean, you saw, I don't know if the video showed it or not, but there's a giant fireball coming out of that suppressor. I mean, even with a fast powder, there's still an enormous amount of powder burning in and outside of that suppressor, which would not be I don't think the military would be happy about a giant fireball. That was a Hollywood load. I mean, it's going 3,200.
Right, sure, but there's powders with flash suppressants in it that can mitigate a lot of that as well. But and I don't know if you saw in that video too, he did a 4 20-round mags mag dumps
full
with
auto.
the 10.5.
Yeah, full auto. Yeah,
And just
yeah,
ran flawlessly. I mean,
Yeah, that was the other part of the video that like I was very impressed to see the velocity comparable, and that definitely got my attention. I was like, holy shit, somebody did it finally. And then to watch him follow up with like a full auto, four mags of full auto. With that just pretty much sealed the deal for me, and I was like, "Oh man, I gotta talk to these guys because they're finally fulfilling my dreams."
A little side note to that: I videoed shooting a 20-inch full auto with 80, I think it was 85 grain spears.
Yeah,
and videoed it, and I played it for Brian. He's listening to it, and he's like, "That sounds just like the cyclic rate of an M60." So I had a video of me shooting a Vietnam era M60, and we played them side by side, and it was almost identical cyclic rate between the 20-inch, 6 max and a M63, shooting some 308 or 762.
Yeah, I shot the M60 enough. It's like, man, I heard that sound. I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah. Have you guys tried to do anything with belt fed in relation to belt fed yet, or no?
Not yet,
but it's been proposed, and we have the capability.
Good.
I think the biggest challenge right there is just getting the links, manufactured.
Yeah.
Because it is a slightly larger body diameter. So
we know a guy.
That's good. That's good. Yeah, because that's going to be the next thing that people want is they're going to be like, okay, great, we got this thing to run out of a AR platform. Can we get it to run out of can this be a belt fed as well?
Yeah.
You're running out of a 249?
Yeah, the saw.
Yeah.
And then it was another interesting video that Nicholas did. Nicholas Young from Desert Tech. He had that proposal with the next gen weapon system, and he basically studied the ballistics, and he was like, he's a pretty smart guy, and he's like, if I had to do this over again, it was like a 22-minute video, and at the end of the video, I think at like the 19-minute mark, he goes off into the 6 max. And I was like, holy crap, and he talked for 3 or 4 minutes on the 6 max. And he said, if I would have had this cartridge when I submitted this gun, this was the cartridge I would have chose to submit to that program. And that was real flattering, to hear him say that. So who knows what the future is going to hold.
Yeah, well, good. So are you guys kind of having an aha moment? Like has there been a moment for you guys where you're finally starting to be like, okay, well, we can enjoy some success now, or because I know how it is when you're developing.
Well, like he mentioned earlier, when we're done with this, we're going to go back and start doing some more testing. So, it's moments of hurry up and wait, followed by chaos and frenzy, followed by hurry up and wait.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget to enjoy the journey as it goes, because you guys, I'm really excited. There's nothing that I love more than the garage entrepreneur story. Like, it's pretty much what I have kind of centered the podcast around. I love to talk to people from all walks of life. My premise for the podcast is everybody's got a story. What's yours? But I really, really love where one of my main stories that I love to talk to people about and get them to tell their story is the entrepreneur's journey from, garage guerrilla prototyping to successful enterprise. So, and I think, that's probably a good place to stop since we've been going on it for 90 minutes. I'll let you guys get back to the lab and get to testing. But is there anything specific that you guys want to close with?
Man, I don't know. That's a good question.
I don't know, something you kind of, hit upon, like for me, I mean, obviously, there's, the hope that monetarily this is beneficial, but I guess to a deeper level, like, I think it'd be really cool to have your name associated with the cartridge that becomes the next general infantry round.
Yeah.
It takes the current weapon system into the next millennium. I just think kind of cool.
100% agree with that statement.
So I mean, that's
My old gunsmith Joe Schlein. He was an amazing man. He was an historian, a very, very smart German. He started his military career in the Air Force as a flight engineer, enlisted. And then when Vietnam broke out, he switched over and became a warrant officer in Nam and got shot. He was flying Lotus, the OH-6 Syracuse hunter-killer teams. He got shot down 3 times, survived all that. But when I met him, he educated me. His safe really brought an awakening to me. He would open his safe and pull out a gun, and I'd say, okay, what's the significance of this gun? And he's like, that's 4-3 Spanish, and educated me about the Boer Wars and about the significance of inventions of weapons and how they, changed the course of history. And he told me, after he was involved in the initial design, we chambered the first rifle together, and he told me there's only been, I believe it's 7, if my memory's right, people that have brought a cartridge to the military. And he said Spencer was the last one, and he said you're going to be the next one before he passed.
Good. Well, I hope that comes to fruition, and if you guys can keep the performance variable on an upward trend like you're doing, I think you guys will have an excellent chance at doing just that. So I'm really excited for you. I always ask people at the tail end of the podcast, you got any good dad advice for anybody? What's your good dad advice?
The what advice?
Good dad advice.
Good dad advice, man. Just stay the course. Do what you know is right. If you know it's not right, don't do it.
That's good. It's good. Clark, what do you got?
Man, something that just like here recently, like, I always like taught my daughter, because a lot of people are so like biased in their food choices, what they like or don't like, and they try to influence their kids in that. And I've always taught my daughter, try everything once, you know what I mean? And so, like, on this one, what I mentioned earlier, we went and harvested a couple of elk. She's like, make sure you bring the heart back, because now she likes to, take and cut up and batter and fry and eat the heart. And I'm like, it's just nasty, but so yeah, I mean, at least don't raise your children in a narrow-minded mentality, be let them know that there's a whole world out there to explore.
Yeah, critical thinking is a thing which I think has been unfortunately lost as of late. So I like that to be objective, have some objectivity, and put your biases aside, and have some critical thinking skills, as I think is super important these days.
Absolutely. Think for yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much. I can't tell you how grateful I am for you guys taking time out of your day. Thanks for sorting through all of the tech issues with us. And we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So thanks for to all you guys out there, wherever you're at on the globe. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you guys enjoyed this edition of the Lone Element Podcast. And we will check you out next week on Weapons Free Wednesday. Thanks.